there are a ton of artists out there who maybe haven't found the level of success that you have, but maybe are feeling, you know, some of the similar traits that we've been discussing about of being in the low points or trying to figure out how to make the next art piece, or the quote unquote cliche struggling artist. What are some like tips you would give for some of these new entrants into the NFT space?
I would say don't enter the space. It's already full. It's already been done. It's don't give us any more competition. Just do not art. Whatever that I feel like naturally just being in it, you end up developing these little relationships, and they don't even have to be big things. You know, there's a ton of artists that I won't hear from them for a while. I'm at a point and then they reach out and they say something and it's like just the right thing that I needed. I try to do the same for others, you know, like so many times on both sides. They're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. I was having, you know, a day and thank you. So it's just kind of paying it forward whenever you can.
Another exciting episode today. Could not be more overzealous. I finally got on the show Max Osiris, the legend himself, the original crypto artist from 2018, the man who's not afraid to speak his mind, and that's one of the reasons why I've been following him. Got to hang out once in Vegas back a few years ago. When right before the NFT space boomed, and right before it became a popularity contest. At least I think that's I think that's some of the phrasing that I've seen. So Max, man, thank you for joining the podcast.
Welcome. Thanks too. Like it's always like such a strange thing because we're just like, hey, we're just two people talking, and then there's like people in the future who will be like hearing us, like sitting in on us talking, and I'm like, welcome, person listening, like, hi. Thanks for the conversation, but you really can't talk, you know? I mean, I guess maybe in comments or something.
Yeah, you know, I've always seen podcasting as a networking tool more than, again, like an attention grabber. I had this weird hack. So when I started my podcast in 2020, I had realized that when I'd reach out to people that I was interested in talking with, you know, whether it's a crypto, at the time it was either a crypto investor, an entrepreneur, or anything like that, I just shoot them a message and say like, hey, you know, I want to learn a few things about you. Would you like to have a conversation? You get left on red immediately. But if you say, hey, you know, I'd love to connect with you and share our conversation online, 9 out of 10 times, everyone is like, yo, let's fire that bad boy up.
Right. I mean, I'm like, I can't be the only one that I like talking. Right. And I'm like, just like, yeah, I'll talk. And, you know, if I haven't done like a few of these kind of like podcasts through time, I actually, like when I'm down, I like to listen to it and kind of like get back into that space that it was there, you know, like I've been once in a while listen to like a old Decline review or you know, with Eric, and I was like, and it's kind of sweet because a lot of it was about the stuff that was actually really exciting about, you know, all of us sort of like building these things we don't know what we're doing, and it's still kind of happening. I think I'm an idealist at heart, so I feel like people hopefully will think big picture, and you know, and then like when it hits the reality of how some people operate, it's like, oh god, okay, we're centralizing like gallery stuff, and like I saw somebody get, you know, super excited because their stuff is at like Hong Kong Basel, and I could have paid for it, right? And this was the thing, the first, like, this company doing it, they're kind of like, they're like, what do they call them? Vanity galleries or something like that, right? Like where you pay to display your stuff. And I kind of like get it, because as an artist, it's traditionally, right? Because I'm kind of like trad and digital. And like traditionally, man, what a slog, like for an artist to be an artist. I still go to the shows like on the weekends, you know, here locally. And man, that's so much dedication and work to just display your stuff. If somebody, you know, comes along once in a while, likes it, buys it, okay, you can eat, right? Like it's
so here,
like I just watched it.
Let me ask you this, Max. Then for an artist, you've been in TradFi and in NFTs, which is this crazy world. If you're getting your art into a gallery, is it more about the attention that it sparks, or the conversation? Or is it really about making a living as an artist? And this is kind of like you're now displayed in X gallery. There's 2,000 people who've attended. Which one are you? Which type of economy are you trying to go for? The monetary or the attention?
I mean, I think the attention results in monetary over time. I think like traditionally the sales cycle for art is somebody really like fucks with stuff, and then they, you know, maybe they read your backstory or meet with you and you connect, and you know, or they just really like sort of what the person's about, or on top of like loving the actual art, hopefully, right? And then, you know, it kind of probably gnaws at them for a while, and they're just like, all right, I'm gonna spend this money on it, or something, right? And that's kind of like the traditional sales process, I think, for the most part, unless you're talking about, you know, sort of like the you know, like a Sotheby's auction or something, where they like their whole thing is just to get as much hype as possible and pretend that like you're really exclusive if you get in there first, you know, and like,
yeah, you know,
that's true.
You know, it's strange because I ended up selling 3 Mooncats as Sotheby's, right? It's not something that I created, but as a collector, I got to sell some. Yep. And I was ready for this big experience. Yes, I got a ton of attention from a social media standpoint. All of my social media accounts had shot up, more attention, more people were interested in what I'm doing. But from a demand expectation, it was much more abysmally lower than I expected. It just did not correlate. And also then on top of that, for NFTs, maybe it's because they're still working out the kinks or anything, but a 20% buyer's premium on top of that, dude, really discourages any native purchasers from really coming in, unless they're just trying to buy it just for that like headline attention grabbing. This Beeple piece sold for $60 million.
Right, and that's so much of it too. Is like the collectors, the big egos, man, there's so many. And, you know, and I usually don't kind of like mess with them too much unless they also are like just really cool people. Like I love my collectors because I don't have to like, essentially like we have mutual respect on the same level. And so I don't have to be like, oh yes, sir, please. Can you, you know, and I can't do that. That's like that. Nothing in me is like gonna try to like smooth talk you into like, hopefully if I can assuage your ego enough, and then you'll be like, yes, I feel important now. I'll drop the bid or whatever. So, and I feel like it's one of those things. Is just, you know, over time, that's how it's been. Like people get into their DMs and go back and forth a lot, and I kind of understand that. Like and I do that a little bit, you know, when I really like vibe with a person, but it's also like it's kind of it's a lot to handle, the decentralization aspect and everything, right? Like I'm probably pretty well known by more people in different parts of the world that, you know, if they try to talk to somebody on the street about NFTs, they might not really care. So it's this like really strange layer of fame that I also don't want it to get like so uncontrollable and so big that like I can't even like go get a hamburger down the street, you know, because like that's a real thing that people deal with. And I also can't just be like, you know, like put on my fake smile and be like, oh yeah, I was in love with you, you know, and just like shoot the shit or something about something, and I'd be like, I had to do this like 20 times today. That sounds like a miserable life.
Well, just wait until the digital McDonald's pops up, and then you're trying to go you're trying to go get your glitch burger at McDonald's, and the whole paparazzi is just cornering you, asking for your opinion on Robness or something like that.
Yeah, Moonbird's Whopper, man. Or I guess McDonald's is the one that's paying Cardi B that much money to look that fake, right? I just saw that ad and I'm like, it's some like fantasy scene and they're trying to make it very like, ooh, this is, you know, and I think about that and I'm like, yes, I'd have money in my account, but then if I'm promoting like basically a non-nutritional gross ass product that I still have sometimes, man, I get my Taco Bell, I get my, you know, like I get my fix. But if I'm like supporting that lifestyle, I'm like, I'm doing a lot of harm for especially like young people who just don't know any better about, you know, how your body might start decaying if you start eating McDonald's every day for your life.
Well, and that's kind of like the transition of that idea of, you know, selling a non-feasible product to, you know, just the average consumer. It's kind of like the influencer selling, you know, the average or the unsophisticated type of NFT to those who don't know how to invest, and they lose all their money and maybe some of their mental health as well. I would like to. I love those, the refractor glasses.
Oh man, I look cool in this in the thing. I'm like in a Goldie stereoscope.
Dude, you got a vibe going in on your car right now. For those that are listening, dude, you got to check out the Max Mobile right now. Is stunting with everything on the knees. But Max, you mentioned that you're part of you were part of the traditional world. You're this figure on Twitter, right? You're very outspoken. You're not afraid to speak your mind and talk about maybe some of the tougher issues, whether it's interpersonal or some extracurricular things that are happening in the space. What did you do before you landed into NFTs in 2018?
It's actually this is pretty cool stuff. Like, I'm not sponsored by like American Spirit or a brand, but it's holler at me.
Nice brand placement right there.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, most of it is like squiggles, and it's a cock or a rooster, whatever you call it, but it's like a Thai one.
Inu.
Pretty cool, man. Wow, it smells really intense. Oh yeah, what was I doing before I got into it? So I was basically trying to make a living as an artist, which is, like I said, it's like such a ridiculous thing. Like, I remember I hit up like a few rich people that I knew after I made like my initial pieces. And I was like, hey, I'm an artist. Would you like these? Like, I'll sell all of them to you for, I think I made like $27,000 because I was like broke ass poor or something. I was like, man, you know, this would be life-changing money. And it was actually the founder of One Taste, Nicole, that I was like, I think she's got money, like whatever. And she wrote back, she's like, I support you as an artist. That's very nice. But she's like, no. And I was like, damn it. So, and I was still poor for a while. I was literally like living in the back of a Prius that I was renting in LA at the time. And I was like, you know, what am I going to do? And what was actually really rewarding about that whole thing is, I think my all-time high for a painting with the NFT is over that. It's like 30 G's, right? And I was like, that's so cool. That was like, to go from that to this, right? And yeah, so I mean, but also I was kind of on a tail end of going, pretty much losing my mind and eating mushrooms every day, just gobbling up weird plant medicines, and not weird, like actual sacred, amazing plant medicines that. I don't know. I left reality for a while, and then I came back in and was like, okay, well, I want to make this easier and better for more than just myself, because if other artists can express themselves, you know, like the good parts of what crypto art is actually really about. And, you know, to this day, it's still something that I'm very proud of, that we're able to like kind of create this whole layer of reality collectively, you know, and that's a lot of it is just like the actual community is cool.
It's unique to say. And also the fact that you're trying to escape reality, you know, through some psychedelics and medicinal properties or substances. And then you found yourself into NFTs, which is also a complete alternate reality within itself. Probably were able to, you know, synchronously migrate over into NFTs without even knowing that you're off the mushroom trip.
Yeah, it was cool, man. Like it was. I got pictures of, I think, the Prague show, and I was placed in the visionary category, which I'm like, that's cool, man. It was me and another like visionary artist who, like, his work was just incredible, and I was like, I'm in good company here. I'm like, because I try to popularize transdimensional as like a word, because, you know, like the ego of an artist. At one point I was like, it's not enough that I create art. I want to create a category, right? Because then that's cooler, and, you know, more egoic. So I still once in a while will tag stuff transdimensional, because I feel like, you know, if you ever really trip, you might see things that.
I pulled up your page, right? Because you're talking about transcendental and mushrooms right here, right on the front page of Max Osiris Legacy. Let's start diving into some of your work in like the early days. So you right on your Twitter account, you mentioned that you came in 2018. Did you immediately start with this trans-dimensional type artwork? Did it take a little bit of you to kind of, or to try to feel your way out to really try to understand what even a non-fungible token is?
I mean, those are interesting questions, because it's like, yes, D, all the above, right? Like looking at it now, I'm like, man, I just did whatever, and that's cool. Because for me, I found when I was like sort of coming back to reality, one of the things that really helped me was sort of put it all back together was like I did Sharpie drawings, and mostly because at the time, that's all I could afford is like a Sharpie and some paper. So I would like, there was a period of time where I was like out in LA, and I was like sleeping on sidewalks, and it was starting to rain. So, but like the reality of being in that position is like so mentally draining, because you're constantly like essentially trying to like stay human in an inhumane kind of way. So, and on top of that, it was like I had a lot of things. Yeah, you like that one?
Oh, this is a good one. It says Fauci, and it's that's quite a scene, I have to say.
Yeah, that's and the head there is by Kalen Blake, who was my co-conspirator in 2019 and 2020 for crypto art shows. So he actually, I took a photo of him with the mask thing, and it's kind of cool looking at these things with you. I'm like, man, I forgot how much stuff I created. Because this is where it gets a little strange for me. It's because like I feel like art is therapeutic. We all have our traumas, and I feel like when you get lost in making art, you kind of escape the mundane plane that we're all like swimming in, and it's such a weird thing, because like now it's money too, and it's like fame and egos and whatever. But at its core, it's like if you can get people to create more art, I think that's a great thing, because they get to explore these parts of their psyche that everyone else is telling them to go get a fucking job somewhere and lose their life force working for some shitty corporation who doesn't care. And so I like that we've sort of recombobulated our value systems more towards this.
This is kind of how the internet works. It's how it's migrating. We use memes, as a way to communicate. We use NFTs in art as a medium of exchange. There's all kinds of different ways that we're just flipping the traditional world up on its head on the way that we interact with one another. It's really, really beautiful. But as we're going through this Max Osiris Legacy collection, I'm curious about like your creative process. I mean, we mentioned already in the beginning, that you like to experiment with various elements in the world and also digitally. For something like this per se, like how do you, is this something that you conceptualize in your mind, or do you start with like a base image and you kind of extrapolate from there?
I feel like, you ever listened to Terrence McKenna, The Message? It's like a video where it's like a part of one of his speeches, and it's really just beautiful, where he talks about like essentially creating at the edge of like what has never ever been seen before, and how this stuff gets downloaded through our dreams. So I feel like when I'm creating, most of the time I don't know, it's like I don't have there's not a single piece of art of mine that I've had a plan for, that I was like, okay, it's going to look like this and it's going to look like that, right? I have a vague idea and I get into it, and a lot of it is just fun accidents, right? Like I'll try different settings, and something unexpected will come out, and I was like, oh, that's actually cool, right? And I feel like as a visual artist, that's kind of like the big thing that we're all training just through doing it, is we pick up this like sixth sense of understanding that like, oh, there's something here, or this has like some kind of unexpected symmetry, or it has a feeling to it, you know, because like when is an art piece done? You know, like that's the forever thing. It's like, well, it's never finished, but you just sort of like, you're just like, okay, now this looks kind of cool. So yeah. And I mean, I looking at these things with you, I'm like, it's a lot of different stuff. It's like, it's all like spaghetti on a wall, right? But it's like in wallets, which is cool.
You can see the theme throughout it, and now I've migrated over to your newer collection. This one was from 2021, it appears, or at least when the first token was created, where the last one said 2018, 2019. You can see that you are starting to either modernize or maybe your growth over the last few years, where you're starting to put, well, as I say, it's like a giant dick. One of those.
It's technology, man. The best technology.
Oh, how fun! How funny is that? But you kind of see it growing and morphing, maybe because there's maybe there's just like new tooling that exists at this point in time. From that 2018 collection when you first started to 2021, let's kind of dive a little bit into the culture of the NFT space, because it's also something that I see you discussing quite often, which I find quite amusing because it's perspectives that you don't really see shared. In 2018 and those early stages of NFTs, when Super Rare was first being built, known origin, people were still trying to figure it out. Was it a very inclusive environment, and what were like the main themes or thoughts during those early days?
I mean, it wasn't super inclusive. I mean, SR basically made their whole model on exclusivity, kind of, right? It's like, everyone wants to be in this, but they can't, or they have to show a certain level of, and I'm kind of like, that's cool. I can't even imagine the amount of like haterade that they get from artists who think their shit is top notch, better than anyone else's, and how dare they not see through it, And I can't even imagine like what Zach and co have to deal with that. But I'm also that guy, right? in a way, I kind of, I'm like, I think a lot of it is just like, I timed the wave just right, like it's there wasn't that many of us there, and I mean I'm happy to see the number of options anymore, because I think that's one of the best things that came out of the space is like if you if you can't get into SR, then maybe you can get into KO, and if you can't get into KO, then you can go into Rareable and say, fuck the gatekeepers, I'm gonna build my own following, and just do it by building up like a Twitter or Instagram, or that's mainly what I use as a sort of, I don't like marketing, but that is the marketing, right? In a sense, is like, or visibility, because otherwise, people will forget about you. So you kind of have to just engage.
You have to play the rat race, unfortunately. Although the collector base here is probably a little bit different than it is traditionally. Do you for your community, as you mentioned that you sold traditional art as well before, are there any similarities you see between the different communities that you formed over the years?
Like to me, just crypto art is the community. Like I don't try to gatekeep. Like I don't even on a level, I don't really even like Bay Art Club is probably the worst version of it, right? I think CoffeeZilla is basically saying like, here's a country club for people who just want to talk to other rich people, right? And I'm just like, cool, man, it's so exclusive, whatever, right? Like I don't really get down with that too much.
The hype culture.
Yeah, they're like, I'm better than you, because I got money, like, okay, cool. Like, hopefully you're doing something more than just like buzzing around from crappy party to crappy party with people also trying to like find more important people than you, like that whole culture is just, and I see it kind of like resurfacing now, like hopefully with all this COVID BS, but I don't know. It's kind of like, do I want to fly around city to city go to the next party, you know, with the people, and I do love like meeting new people, especially when we have like common interests. But I think there's like a whole industry of just bored people with too much money, and you know, like there's actual real life things to solve, I think. And this is one of my like major dilemmas right now, is I'm like, what am I putting my time and effort into that goes beyond just, you know, me or my little inner circle that got busted up because egos got busted up, you know? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's the growth of industry. I mean, we'll start in 2018. The NFT space it seemed like it was very focused on art, 2018, 19, 20, although there was right beforehand, right? You had CryptoPunks that were created and Crypto Kitties, but the gamification aspect really hadn't taken off too hard. And it wasn't really until I think Rarible launched, where that token, the Rari token, was created. And I believe you and a few others were some of the people who had like migrated over to Rarible the early days, because you were like kicked off of Super Rare or something like that.
Yeah, Super Rare and Known Origin at the time.
And No Origin. Can you kind of take us through the story of what had happened there and those early Rari days? That's from the different OGs that I've talked with. It makes it appear that Rari token was really a game changer, at least for bringing additional liquidity into the NFT market.
Oh yeah, I mean it's we had and it actually happened during the summer, and it was like COVID summer, and everyone was like struggling to get by and stuff, and then like the thing dropped, and like I remember I was talking to Robinus at the time, and he's like, dude, I think this might be a really big deal, and I was like, yeah, it kind of looks like it might be, right? It didn't take that long for it to moon, and yeah, it provided a lot of, you know, cash to artists that, you know, I was like, whoa, holy crap, like we just made a lot, you know. And then it got gamed, and I don't care, like whoever was gaming it at the time to try to yada yada. I mean, I think like if you're chasing money, you're the dumbest person on the planet. Like, and it just, that's how I feel through and through. Like if that's the only thing you care about, you are fucking useless. And like, and I don't care how much of it you amass, you know, like look, there's Kim Kardashian on there and stuff, right? Like whatever billions you have, where are they? Where are they being stored? What are they doing? Are they just like making more money for yourself? You know, like it's a tool, but I think it's like if you worship it, you're a tool. So, but it's a good tool. You know, it can build you a cruise ship, go pollute the seas, or whatever people do with it. I mean, like.
So here I pulled up your Twitter account. Exhibitions have been LA, New York, Prague, Dubai. The list goes on and on and on. It seems like right here, your recent collection, or at least the newest one, this isn't individual art pieces, but it's your 0% max grifters, and it's a take on X Copies grifters. Tell me about this collection. Was there a reason behind it? I'm assuming with you and looking at all your art, there's some sort of symbology or symbolism that's behind it.
Yeah, I think the main symbolism of it is I was like, shit, I got to pay rent, something, you know, and so, and I've tried to smash different like AI things with other weird things that, you know what I mean? Like I try to like put things together, and a lot of like I try to do like a punks and monkeys like graft, but then like the final product was just looked like shit, and I was like, no one's gonna want this in their wallet. You know, and I was kind of like, well, let's see what happens when I do this. And this is literally Runway ML. Runway ML is like, you know how, I mean, you've seen it, right? People get their like perfect AI generated like superhuman photos of themselves, right? And they got to like pay money to do it. So it's like, all right, what happens if I do it with X Copy? Because I still, like Xcopy is an artist that I still respect, got no beef with. They're doing their thing. They're anon. I'm not, and it's like, we're very different worlds, but I think like the work is actually genius and just how he plays things are. So I was like, you know what? I'll propagate his art. Like because I think he's a fantastic artist. And, because I'm, it's one of those things where it's, they're not like trash grifters, right? Like, because then that would be propagating that other thing, which sort of into for a while, and then I'm not. So it kind of was like the grifters came out as I was actually really surprised that like the thing worked instead of it just being a jumbled weird mess. And I was like, I kind of mess with this, and then it was kind of right around the time that like OpenSea did their like little shuffle where they're like, okay, well, don't worry about the percentages, right? And I was like, damn. So if I, once these end up on OpenSea or wherever, it's going to be like people can just choose to say 0% on royalties, and that's, man, that's a whole conversation.
Hey, we have some time. What's your take on it? Do you believe that artists individual artists need to find a different way, maybe through just primary sales, or perpetual royalty is why NFT artists exist?
It's a huge part of why it exists, because it was the groundbreaking thing that we all sort of rallied around, because we understood, like, I'd love to see more of my art being traded on the secondary sometimes, because I don't like, the creative process is such that like I can't force myself to create something, like most of the time. Like, I don't believe in like the artist way and all that crap. Like, that's just selling books. But like, there's times when just nothing's coming, and I'm just, I'm like knocking at the sky, being like, God, where's my nothing? Can't figure. I'm like, there's nothing coming, right? So it's like, I feel like secondary sales would help a big way for artists in that sense of like, if they just want to kind of chill and go like, hang out in the woods, they can write the next Walden or whatever. Like, they should be able to, because I feel like so much of creativity is not about, it's not like Gary Vee yelling at you that you're not, you don't have enough TikToks and you're sleeping, over 2 hours a night. Like, that's, I don't know when good comes of that. So I feel like sometimes some of my best stuff just comes out of, I have no idea where, but a lot of it is kind of contemplative time as well. Is just like, okay, I'm going to let things sort of simmer, and then, give myself the space to exist as a human instead of a cog in some machine.
Yeah, no kidding. As I was scrolling through your Twitter, you can see, and also through this conversation, you have this counterculture, or sort of like resistance in the way that you perceive reality, whether it's resisting the grifters, right? The influencers. I think on one of your tweets today, I think it's just talked about like late stage NFT capitalism. It's kind of like where we exist today. You have stuff on your Twitter account, talks about resisting the government or not falling for their stupid antics. Where does all this come from? Is it something that you were raised by, or something that had happened in your life that kind of flipped your whole perspective of reality on its head?
I mean, I think with, the psychedelics kind of like shook me out of a bunch of the propaganda and stuff we're being fed to, even with the Twitter files and all that. It's like, oh wow, the CIA is like actively just trying to like basically create these different narratives, and the banking system is trying to take it over while using these new narratives. And it's, it's just like, I guess once you've lived long enough on this planet, you kind of see where all the bullshit is. And I feel like, a lot of the Bitcoin, Ethereum, the crypto, that like it's meant to start righting some of these wrongs, which is, just like these systems of constant corruption in every single country, right? Like the Panama Papers, the ICIJ, like Assange, right? Like you see it, and it's just it never stops because like somehow, the political systems that kind of are like really starting to fall apart. Which I don't know if I should be like really scared about that or like because like who's and I feel like Vitalik is somebody who like thinks about these things a lot too. He kind of created this thing and he thought people would do socially responsible stuff, and then oops, it just turned into a giant casino, right?
It's so true, though. It's so true. Satoshi's vision was actually Satoshi Dice, right? That's Eric Voorhees started that in 2011. It was never, or 2010. It was never the same, really, ever since then. So then, but then as, right, currency or Bitcoin has been a giant casino. The Maxis tried to take the casino away. Now it's kind of back again with ordinals, or you could say fun experience on Bitcoin, putting data in there. NFTs are becoming hyper gamified through open editions, through kind of a la carte different things that you could do through like Manifold and stuff like that. Where do you think this is headed? It seems like you tend to I perceive you as somebody who has a ton of foresight, as you are generally ahead of a lot of these trends. What's just kind of the grander vision of where you could see this is going, whether it's a dystopic future, or something more rewarding?
I think all of it, and it's up to the individual to figure out which part of it they want to play in and be a part of, because it's such a vast space, and hopefully people learn through unfortunately mistakes and different things like that. And I really do hope people don't start to sort of like throw the baby out with the bathwater wholly, saying like, this whole thing is and like even the CoffeeZilla thing that I saw today, he's basically he's aware of that. He's like, don't make it all bad or all good. And I think that's the like for me, my personal like kind of where I hang out in the space is, like I think Colburn's like heart's in the right place. He's like one of those like massive figures who is attempting to guide it towards something that is beautiful and accessible and decentralized, right? And all these other artists who kind of send me messages and they're like, oh yeah, I it's like a little hit of like, oh okay, that resonates, because I feel like I'm like it's sometimes I literally I'm just like, dude, what the hell? I'm just like saying all these things and I'm just like talking shit about all these other things, and I'm kind of like it doesn't necessarily like cowtail nicely into what I see is sort of like there's a lot of people in this space and their whole thing is like, just be nice. And I don't agree with that at all. Like, it's like, okay, well, so what, we're going to recreate like that fake thing that exists in all these cities everywhere where people just like smile at each other and it's like, no, man, like, and I've been trying to sort of like get more zen about it and be like, okay, you know what, like these people are experiencing what they're experiencing and I don't have to or whatever. But it's hard to not be yourself, and like, is this the way that I am built or I'm building myself? I don't even know. Like, I think free will is like a weird illusion, but
it's tough when it becomes extrapolated in the NFT space, because you have this you're hit by a multiple approach. You have this like outstanding kind of peer pressure from different people saying, hey, buy this PFP, buy this mint, right? Buy this, do this. Then you also have the financial component where it's like, if I do buy this and it does go 20x, right, now I can pay my rent off like the entire year. So then you have the dark side of you that's like, if I keep doing this, then I'm going to become addicted to gambling, right? Then I'm going to become addicted to, right, the dopamine hit. What if I lose everything? All of these different things that are coming at you. And this is where you see a lot of these different founders of these NFT projects say they need to take a mental health break or different things like this, because they're just hit by so many different sides. How does Max Osiris kind of defend himself from all of these different like external pressures that are thrown at you, especially over the last 5 years?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like it's definitely a lot. I don't handle it super well, like sometimes, like right now I'm sort of in this funk, but I just got to keep going, like I feel like I really appreciate the whole sort of like alchemical framework for the dark night of the soul, right? And even like Colburn on like an interview like this once said very poignantly, because he was asked like, where did this all come from? And he said, the darkness, like he said, the suffering, like, and I think I can relate to that completely, because when I'm in it, it doesn't seem like there's any way out. And when I find my way through it, then I was like, what the hell was that? Why did I think that? And you're like, oh, I thought it was just all terrible. And I guess having done it a few times, I keep trying to like leave myself like little breadcrumbs that it's going to be like, you know what? You've been through this before. It's gonna get better. Doesn't seem like it now, but it's like it will. And then you ride the highs as they come. And I've been fortunate enough to have some pretty insane highs in this lifetime so far. But I'm also not being like, oh well, that's all that was, because there's plenty more to experience and play with and inspire, and I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is to like inspire, because you can really only do it through like action and sharing and storytelling and
yeah, that's through creation and through your words on Twitter. How would you describe your fan base, or at least like your digital collectors? I know we kind of talked about the similarities between the traditional ones and the ones in crypto, but those who do follow you, how do you think you inspire them? Like what are the characteristics that you present that keeps them coming back of purchasing your work?
I mean, mostly I think it's just like, oh, I can speak freely, or I can say what's there for me, like in the moment, even though sometimes it's not pretty, or doesn't cross off these certain things. And then just the ability to, I mean, that's probably like one of the biggest things for me is like I'm coming up on like 5 years later this year, and I'm like, and it's like this fear of failure, it's like this fear of like, oh, I'm gonna have to, like, what if I have to like ask somebody for money because I'm about to get, because that's like a huge thing for me too, is like I've been on the streets and stuff, and it's like, man, that's such a jarring experience, that like even the fear of it sometimes is like, but I feel like we all kind of experience that in our own ways, like as we're all trying to like shuffle around the board, and like we have our highs, we have our lows, and but just like the trauma that comes from those types of experiences, I think are like exponentially more difficult to deal with through time, which is, compared to not that. And I kind of want more people to not have to experience that. And I haven't figured out how to do that quite yet, like on a meaningful basis. And then as I say that, I'm also kind of like aware that this whole thing is like that, kind of, right? Like it's like, I love seeing artists win. Like today, somebody and this is, for me, it's hard to keep everyone, like we have the Dunbar number, right? And so it's like, I say someone, because I'm like, what's even her name? Like I have to kind of like,
yeah, I think that number is, I think that number is what, 150, I think, that you can keep.
Yeah,
in
right. And how
with.
many crypto artists are there now, right? And it's like, it's hard for me to keep track of. And it's one of those things where like I feel it's almost like unrelatable until you get there, and then you get there and it's like, holy shit, how's anyone doing this, right? And this is one of the things that I kind of feel still is like, oh, Rodness is going through this shit too, right? Like in his own way, we're going through, we've chosen slightly different paths and things, but it's like, it ain't easy, like this stuff gets tricky, but I do appreciate people talking about it, because then there's like a relatability that, if you do experience this like crazy success out of nowhere and it comes at you, it's actually like, it's a lot to deal with. And if you can do it over and over again, then you kind of like hopefully start to learn how to navigate it a little better.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, like we're all kind of looking for connection and for relatability, and even having this, I get kind of like nervous on whenever I have to like do like a public thing or get on a podcast, and I kind of get in my head about it, and I'm like, oh. And then but then afterwards I always kind of feel better, because I feel like more connected. And I think that's probably like the biggest issue of our time is disconnection in people, and depression. And like I go through all of it too. It's just being like, oh wow, you're suffering too. Okay, me too. Like, okay, phew, I can breathe a little bit better.
Yeah, it is really like therapy. When I started my podcast 3 years ago, and there are times where I go through these lulls of, man, why do I do this? But every single time after, I was just having this conversation with one of my friends. Every time after a podcast, man, it's just this therapeutic feeling, right? This connectedness of talking, the ups and downs, learning people's life, trying to learn something. There's so many different dopamine receptors we have that are triggered through conversation and through social connection. I mean, I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, and I've had tons of highs and lows. Some lows that I've never even said publicly that I hope to one day. But just knowing that those people share that type of sentiment of whatever. Everybody's low is always different too, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody's low could be in terms of financial. Some of it could be in terms of a relationship that you left, or relationship with your parents, or whatever it is. But those lows, man, we all have experienced those. And if you haven't, I'd almost feel sorry for somebody, because when that does happen, everyone gets that feeling at some point in time, dude. It wrecks you. It wrecks you hard.
And that's I was biking earlier today, and I was really thinking about that, because I think somebody said it, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I think that's about right, which is like the people who have been through the hardest of times end up being the most gentle, or the most caring, or the most able to, empathize with anyone else who is going through their, version of it. So, and end up writing like the Holocaust survivors writing books and trying to like help other people like deal with, sort of existential crises and things like that, which I think we all go through. Like I think I saw like an 82-year-old man recently on Twitter post. He's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Like, now what, right? And I was like, oh God, this doesn't get easier. It's like art, right? Like if you're really doing it, it's like it kind of doesn't really get easier if you're really doing the art, because then if you're trying to sell out and then you sold out, like that sucks too. Probably it starts to eat at your soul, and then you got to figure out how to do art again or whatever, right? I'm like, that's probably one of my biggest fears, is like selling out, because I thought it'd be like cool in the moment, you know what I mean? And then I'd look back and I'd be like, what the hell?
How did I get finagled into that? Speaking of Holocaust survivors and stuff, in one of my darkest points of my life, I read the book by Viktor Frankl called A Man's Search for Meaning, which is about like a Holocaust survivor. And that book really kind of set me with a better perspective. Other books like Shoe Dog and different biographies. Shoe Dog's the story of Phil Knight, the guy who created Nike. A bunch of these books helped me during my low point kind of set a different recourse. A lot of that happened also in the bear market of crypto, right? So it's like not only are you like financially wrecked, but you're also like socially wrecked as well. So you just the best way for me to figure things out in my low points is generally reading books and podcasts and connecting with different people to try to, find some sort of relatability, because there are people that you will connect with. And as I've become more entrenched in crypto over the years and branding, and, more of my friends now exist online, right, through a screen, which is it's a complete mind shift, right? It's a complete reality change from what you're normally adept to. It is almost more rewarding. And I found that some of the conversations with crypto friends and internet friends are actually much closer than some of the friends that I've had for, for years. It's maybe just because it's a similar interest, but for some of the friends that you've connected with, it seems like you've kind of gone back and forth, at least through some of the conversations. You mentioned Robness as one of them. Okay, curious, what is this relationship? I see you guys going back and forth. So you're almost like best friends who are just bickering consistently. What's going on there?
I feel like the reality of it is just a lot deeper than what can be said in words. Mm-hmm. And I struggle with that myself, because I'm like, I kind of like, I have to defend my ego and blah, blah, and like, we're both kind of doing that. At the end of the day, I don't wish him any harm. I hope he does what he does. And, it's too deep, man. Like it touches on too many parts of my own personal felt experience. Like what you were saying, like there's stuff that you probably haven't told anybody else of what you went through. And I have the same thing. And my main hope is just that eventually I can speak about it and speak about it freely, and speak about it safely too. Cause I feel like, a lot of like the reality of modern life, it's like people have to like hide things because they're just like, like someone doesn't like you is gonna blah blah blah, and if they have the power, blah blah blah, and it's like that sucks. That part of it sucks, and then the part of it that is like, I'm only probably from the worst of the things that I'm probably like 3 to 4 years out, and then they still affect me deeply. I hope I can eventually get myself to a place where I can speak about it eloquently, and that it, causes ripple effects through space-time of healing for all of us, I think, because it's one of those things I kind of forget in the hubbub of this all, is like so much of life is really about healing your own traumas and being that for other people, I kind of get distracted with all this other stuff. And I remember my San Pedro ceremony, which it's like probably the most incredible master plant teacher that I've spent time with, basically, because it creates magic, creates actual lived magic. And, it kind of gives you some extraordinary powers as well. Like if you choose to use them for, what Louis Tamani, one of my favorite artists down in, I think he's in Peru, like his main teaching, I think, is, we are our own medicine, which I think is like such a beautiful, pithy quote. And it's something I remind myself all the time of, that it's like, it's not out there, it's not outside, it's not, you can't buy it or get it. It has to be like an internal mind shift, or to want to like be healthy, to want to create a positive experience for yourself and others,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. In some of my darkest times, one of the characteristics, which now I actually am fairly good at, is being patient. But at a point in my life, I was the most impatient person, and it's this weird like conundrum where it's like the only way to practice patience is to actually do it, right? So you get in this like weird of like, how do I ever become patient? Oh, you have to just practice patience. You're like, well, I don't know how to do that, right? So it's this like inner it's like almost like this like lock within yourself that at some point it just randomly happens, and you just feel so relieved, or you feel like you kind of like leveled up to the next phase of your life.
Yeah, I relate that to sort of like, I've had like a lot of anxiety recently, and it's like I can't anxiety more my way out of anxiety. It's not like, I gotta wind myself more to figure out how to not wind myself up more. It's the dumbest thing. And it's like, but it's like the challenge, right? Like you're talking about, becoming a better person or something like that. And it's like, that is the challenge. The challenge is to relax into the moment and just trust that it's going to work out, and that ends up being way more effective and feels better. And it's one of those things, like the mind is like, we still, I think, have like our monkey brain that is like trying to figure things out all the time, you know. And then there's like our probably spiritual inner core that's kind of like, hey man, chill, you can chill, it's fine.
It all comes in time. But now that we're kind of making it towards the end of this conversation, which, you know, it's been very beautiful that you've been very open. There are a ton of artists out there who maybe haven't found the level of success that you have, but maybe are feeling, you know, some of the similar traits that we've been discussing about, of being in the low points, or trying to figure out how to make the next art piece, or, you know, the quote unquote cliche struggling artist. What are some like tips you would give for some of these new entrants into the NFT space in order to become?
I would say don't enter the space. It's already full. It's already been done. It's don't give us any more competition. Just do not art, whatever that. I feel like naturally, just being in it, you end up developing like these little relationships that, and they don't even have to be big things. You know, like there's a ton of artists that I won't hear from them for a while, and then like I'm at a point, and then they reach out and they say something, and it's like just the exact thing that I needed. You know, I try to do the same for others. You know, like there's so many times on both sides, I feel like they're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. I was having, you know, a day, and thank you, you know, and so it's just kind of paying it forward whenever you can, whenever you think of it, you know. Like I feel like there's the reality of reality is just so much more mind-blowing. And so like even like ayahuasca, also known as, and it's like a big great mystery, you know, is discovered, well, it was always there in the jungle, it still is there, but now it's everywhere. And you know, it's one of the ways it was described as was telepathy, right? And it's telepathy, and it does open up these channels that I think are sort of suppressed in all of us. And then if you can sort of have telepathic communication with people, or send them love, or send them caring, and you know, we don't have to use Samsung to do it. We just intend it.
I don't have to talk to Siri to tell me how I can connect with somebody.
Sometimes it's easier to do that way.
Throughout, we'll end here. Throughout your whole NFT career, what you could either call it an anonymous or real personality or team do you think had the most impact on you in your 5 years in crypto?
Personality or team? See, it makes me a bit sad that it's about like teams in the sense of like corporate teams anymore and things like that. I mean, like I kind of get it.
Well, there are some artist groups that are like a team, you know, like some anonymous ones. It's
right.
just weird, yeah, but it's interesting.
And I mean, my whole thing would be to like become a member of a bunch of them if you want, you know. But to me, it's so much more about like the looseness of it, like, you know, it's you know, like I started HTTPXX, which is like just a thing. It's like the most nebulous ass thing. Like if you know about it, then you're in. Congratulations, right? And then if you want to like write those letters wherever the heck, and take a picture of it and share it with whoever else knows about that, that's it. You know, it's meant to be sort of like the most least gate kept thing out there. And it's still kind of obscure, which I like. You know, because it's like it's not being paraded everywhere. Like Neurocolor just put that in his piece, so it's kind of one of those like that's there in the corner, or like if you know what it is, then you do. And you know, random Telegram groups that kind of like respawn here and there, where somebody like throws a bunch of us in that we kind of like sort of know each other, and we're like, hey, I'm good. Like Shao and Shop is like one of those like brothers in arms in this whole thing, where he just like plays bass all the time and he's really good at it. And we'll just be like, hey, what you got? And then he'll play something and be like, yeah, that's cool. So I like my memberships nebulous. I don't like, you know, joining groups and then having to get on a allow list to like go to some douchey party or something. Like there's plenty of those options available.
that there is, and they're just popping up more and more and more. I guess you could say your favorite or your favorite types of group are the untoken gated groups, right? There's a token associated, but it's not really gated socially, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, because I think like ultimately, and this is I am thankful that a lot more of these like NFT events exist because it gives some people something to talk about as they meet in real life. And I think like that's one of those things there was a war on connection over the past 3 years, and it's nice because I think everyone was starving for it. And, you know, when I look at like NFT Paris and stuff, like, yeah, some of that stuff is fairly salesy, but at the end of the day, it's just like nerds getting together, nerding out, you know. And I think that exchange of ideas is really important in person because you like it's a whole different game, like it's a whole different thing. There's a dimension out. There's so many more dimensions to it.
Yep. And the in-person events, and I've noticed that sometimes the Twitter personality does not match the real life personality of an individual. Quite interesting when you start figuring that out. But Max, appreciate you for coming on, man. Love this conversation, getting in depth, you know, getting the feels, but also understanding some of the history and the man who's behind the very unique artwork that I can't remember how he describes it.
Link HTTPXX transdimensional. I don't know. I got all kinds of crap in there. I think my favorite is the AI, like the beginning AI stuff because it's kind of janky now. It's like pixelated artwork from back in the day. And I think that's one category I'm actually like really excited to see grow because it's kind of be like, yeah, you can make anything you want and materialize it. But back when it looked like crap ish, like I think that aesthetic is really cool.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you again, Max. And thank you everybody who's made it this far for listening and watching.
Yeah. Thanks for giving us your time and attention. And I'm like, that always is just one of those things that I'm just like, it floors me, you know, that people would do that. And I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah. Connection, as you said, war on connection. Here we are. We'll see you guys next time.
Ciao.